Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm Dr. Nicole, and today I'm very excited to have Katie Kimball as my guest. Katie and I met earlier this year, and the funny thing about that is we met through a group in San Diego, and we actually live and work like 5 minutes from each other. We have the same zip code, and we didn't know each other prior, so very small world. And I've gotten to know Katie and the work that she is doing with families around getting families back into the kitchen and teaching kids how to cook, which I am such a big proponent of from a health and wellness and just physical and mental health standpoint. So I am really, really excited to have her here with us today to talk about the kitchen as a source of connection, confidence, and creativity for kids. Katie is a blogger, a former teacher, and a mom of 4 kids, so she and I have that in common too, who founded the Kids Cook Real Food eCourse. It's an amazing online course to teach kids how to cook. She started her online life at her blog, Kitchen Stewardship, where she helps families stay healthy without going crazy. Katie's original goal with the cooking classes for kids was to help parents get a little help in the kitchen, build life skills, and hopefully even get kids to eat some vegetables. Love it. But through her work and research, she realized that teaching kids to cook is the best way to show kids they matter and can make a difference in the world. She believes if every child in America was taught to cook, we would smash statistics on childhood obesity, depression, behavior disorders, and more. I could not agree more. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nicole. It's an honor to be here.
So I would love to start out by having you tell us the story of how you came to be doing what you're doing, because it's awesome. Your mission is great. So how did you come into this?
Sure thing. As with anything, we just kind of stumble over one thing after another. I didn't always eat healthy myself. That my own healthy journey began when I was pregnant with my first child and realized that every bite counts so much more, right? It counts double. And then when I'm trying to feed him, the ratio of bite to body is so much bigger than when you're feeding an adult. And it was heavy on my mind, like to learn to feed him really, really well, which meant that I was spending a lot more time at the cutting board than I was used to. And I was hearing from other moms in my circles, like the tensions that they were feeling. It's hard to eat healthy and not spend too much money, or eat healthy and not spend too much time in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And as I was learning little hacks and tips and tricks for kind of finding the center of all of the things that are pulling on us, I thought, my heart is of a teacher, and I was just always like teaching people in my head at the cutting board. And I thought maybe I could actually help other moms make this easier, make this healthy living journey a little easier. If I could grease the chute for them, we could get more people eating healthier, because I was seeing benefits, and feeling benefits in my own family and my own life. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I ended up blogging at Kitchen Stewardship, helping families stay healthy without going crazy. And as I got to know busy moms from all around the world, what I heard over and over was how difficult it was still, because they were never taught to cook. Mm-hmm. And so I realized our generation was really kind of skipped in that. Either our moms cooked convenience foods or they cooked from scratch, but they just didn't tend to teach us.
Yeah.
And we as a generation are kind of uncomfortable in the kitchen. And so I thought, gosh, in 20 years, our kids are going to grow up and say, oh, I want to be healthy, but it's so hard because I was never taught to cook. Mm-hmm. So as a teacher, I want to step into that gap and really make it easy for parents to get in the kitchen and to enjoy themselves, to have a good time. So I do the hard work and they can connect with their kids and make those family memories.
I love it. I think that that's so important. And what you said around, the issues when parents don't cook, then that's not a skill set that gets transferred to kids. I was very lucky. My mom cooked at home. We ate at home, almost every meal my entire growing up. I was part of 4-H, where I took cooking classes and learned to cook, and then, taught other people to cook. So I grew up learning to cook. But what has just shocked me in my professional life, especially, in the last decade or so, working a lot more with teens and young adults, they don't know how to cook. And I'm not talking about maybe can't cook a meal. I'm talking about have never boiled water, or have never done basic things. And it's been shocking to me. And where that becomes so important is when, as a professional, I'm talking with them about the importance of eating a healthier diet and not eating as many processed foods, whether it's because they have anxiety or obesity or, autism or whatever it might be, that we're wanting to really clean up their diet and help give their brain and body the nutrients they need. They need to be able to grocery shop. They need to be able to know what whole foods are, and they need to be able to have some skills in the kitchen. And so that's such a huge gap, I think, for so many people as they grow into adulthood. And that's what I love about what you're doing, is teaching kids from the time they're younger so that as they get towards adulthood, they have the skills to do this.
Yeah, because without the skills in the kitchen at all, if you're trying to be healthier, like it's already hard to go from cooking to cooking like a ton more vegetables or cutting out a food group. That's hard enough. Right. But to go from not even cooking, like it's just too many steps to ask anyone really. And so important to start them up young. And hopefully, ideally, we do smash a lot of those statistics that are, killing our children, because they'll be eating more vegetables right away and starting those good habits and, really retaining their health.
Well, and it's so true, because so much of what the research shows us now about just why we're having epidemic levels of obesity, of diabetes, of depression, of, all of these types of physical and mental health issues, so much of it is connected to the food we're eating, and getting people back into the kitchen really helps them be able to support healthier lifestyle in that way. But also what I love about what you talk about, it's not just about the food that we're making, it's about the process of that, and how just awesome getting kids in the kitchen is for helping their development in so many ways. So, I think that most parents would agree that things like relational connectedness, spending time with their kids, building confidence, creativity, those are really important things. And I'd love for you to talk a bit about, how do you see those things being built in the kitchen?
Yeah, absolutely. It was such a nice, amazing surprise for me, because again, I'm super practical. So I started off wanting to teach kids to cook for like life skills, independence, like the obvious stuff. And also for parents to save 10 or 20 minutes a day because they're not having to do everything themselves in the kitchen. And that all happens. It's reality. But I began to hear more and more stories from members that were just so touching about connecting with their kids. So one comes to mind, a mom named Sarah, whose daughter is 9. She has ADHD. And so she gets a little more distracted than other kids. And she had sent Sarah to a community cooking class in person. Sarah's the mom. The daughter came home with cuts on her fingers. And so Sarah's like, this is not going to work, but was able to use our courses, keep her safe in the kitchen. And they had like a beautiful family moment making a favorite recipe for chicken noodle soup. And a lot of moms, talk to me about like that. Another mom, Lori, she realized in her family they were eating out too much. And she was like, okay, we are going to do 30-day challenge, no eating out. Her girls completely lost it. We're not okay with mom's new plan. And but on day 1, she got them in the kitchen, and they had already done some of our course, so they had some skills. They were able to help. They actually made sushi. So these aren't girls with narrow palates. Yeah, we're not talking narrow palates. They just had this habit of going out. Yeah. But then they were both involved in having different jobs. She said every time one girl did a job, the other girl wanted that job, of course, like classic kid. But by the end of the meal, the family felt so cohesive that the girls were like, okay, we can do this 30-day challenge, So just that idea of working in the kitchen together, being a team, being a family, being a team, working on something all together, it got them connected enough to even be on board with some of the crazy stuff their mom wanted to do. We hear great stuff like that all the time, and just how I feel like service begets service. They always say with babies, sleep begets sleep. Yeah. And I think service begets service. When we're serving other people food, the kids tend to notice what needs are there, and they'll even start to, clean up a little bit or help their siblings. And all of that connection can start in the kitchen, because you're always making food for someone else. Yeah. So it's like automatically an act of service. And then we hear so many beautiful stories about confidence in the kitchen. One of my favorites, little 3-year-old named Lucy, and her mom said she spread her cream cheese on her mom's bagel. Like super simple, right? And mom was really careful not to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
before she ate it. So the little girl was so, so proud. And when I asked her if it would be okay to share that story, she reported, like, Lucy, the 3-year-old, said, "Oh yes, Mom, because other kids need to learn to cook like I know."
Nice.
So, like, I mean, these kids, like, once they feel like they have some skills, and by the way, I mean, skills in the kitchen are so genuine and authentic. Like, kids feel that. So they know they're doing real things that real adults do, not kid tasks. Like, I'm huge on not boxing kids into kid menus or kid tasks.
Yes.
Right? So we give them real tasks. They can see other people eating their food. Nobody needs a participation ribbon for that, because it's just so obvious that you've done something that other people are appreciating. And it just blossoms into incredible independence. Kids are so proud of themselves in the kitchen. Yeah.
I love what you said about, that it starts to build that independence and it gives them that confidence, because, especially when we're thinking about kids with, learning and behavioral disorders. So, kids maybe on the autism spectrum or with ADHD or learning disabilities or, things like that. These are kids who experience a lot of feelings of failure or overwhelm in a lot of areas of their life. And to me, what you're talking about with getting kids involved in cooking in the kitchen is an area where they can really get comfortable and shine. Because I've yet to meet a kid, no matter how severely impaired they are, who can't learn to take on some level of meaningful role in the kitchen. There's just so many different things that they can do. And so I know there's some parents out there thinking, oh my gosh, I'd never give my kid a knife. They'd hurt themselves. Or, my kid wouldn't be able to cook things. But I think what you're talking about is really like cooking or these kitchen skills, breaking it down to everything from helping to mix something and maybe helping to pour ingredients in or helping to clean up, all the way to more advanced skills, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we break everything down into about 30 basic skills that any child or adult would need to be able to make real meals. But it starts at age 2. It starts with a butter knife and a banana. It starts with learning how to pour appropriately. And I mean, talk about confidence and independence. When a 2-year-old can pour their own milk onto cereal or oatmeal or something, they feel like hot stuff.
Right.
so
that's so huge. And I love that you focus on that confidence, because a lot of us as adults, we take that for granted, right? And we think, oh, what difference does it make? I'm just going to do it for my kid. And we get in these routines. And I know with 4 kids, and you have 4 kids too, you just get into these routines and suddenly we realize that we're doing so many things for them. Right? Especially when kids have challenges, we can just get into the habit of doing things for them instead of really being intentional about helping them learn to do things for themselves. And it's not just about, when they're an adult, they're going to need to learn how to, use a knife or use the oven or whatever. Yes, that's important, but it's even about the here and now, the feeling of I'm a person who is capable. I'm a person who can do things. And the kitchen's just such an easy place to work on that, I think.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's so very true. And yeah, you're right. Like anyone can do something in the kitchen. And typically, I mean, kids who are maybe even a little immature or a little unsafe with normal tools, they know that a sharp knife or working at the stove is like, they feel the importance of it and the danger in it. And so like, I think kids tend to take things more seriously. And I often recommend to parents that repetition is really important. And what I found over the years was that a lot of parents of kids on the spectrum or with Down syndrome would email and say, like, I know your class isn't designed for special needs kids, but it's working perfectly because we teach them really fun phrases, right? So like when we are cutting that banana or whatever, we might use an up and over soldier hold and a tug of war pull. We kind of just name everything.
Yes.
So there's repetition in your language. There's repetition in what you do, because everybody needs to eat again, right? It's like the bane of a parent's existence. Wow, I just fed them and now I need to feed them again. But what a great opportunity for the child to be involved over and over again. And how do we learn best? Every person, but particularly those on the spectrum, is by repeating an activity, repeating the language. And I mean, kids love it too. Like, it's really, again, it's fun and it's gratifying, and it really gives them a sense of self. that they're unable to find other places. My daughter's now in 5th grade, but when she was in 3rd grade, her teacher invited me in to do a cooking lesson. And I was like, oh man, because mostly I'm online, I'm in video.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, 24 kids and food. This is going to be interesting. So we decided to make pancakes, really vegetable heavy pumpkin pancakes. Mm-hmm. And she had one of those kids in her class who was constantly in the office, constantly needing behavioral stuff. I mean, to the point where the next year he was not in the school anymore, right? Like it was really a tough one. Yeah. And she still 2 years later talks about that day. And she said that was the best day he's ever had. Yeah. He was so focused and so motivated. He stayed in from lunch to help finish flipping the pancakes. Nice. I mean, it's amazing to see what kind of motivation real tasks can have, and that taste of success too, that you can do something well that everyone else can do too.
Yeah. And I think too, one of the benefits of this, or the bonuses of this, is, as you said, we're always having to feed our kids. Like, this is something that's in the flow of our day anyway. And I'm big on helping parents think about how to maximize time, right? So it's like, okay, you're already in the kitchen making lunches or prepping dinner or whatever you're doing. It's a perfect opportunity to be able to pull your child in, even for a few minutes, doesn't have to be the whole thing, to get them involved in something that is already in your schedule. So you can have this meaningful interaction, this working on these skills with your child. You don't have to carve out separate time, because everybody says, oh, I don't have time for anything, right? Well, you're already in the kitchen doing this stuff anyway. And so why not do double duty by pulling your child into it and using that as an opportunity for learning?
Yeah. I'm going to contradict you real quick though, because I always recommend to parents not to teach a new skill during the dinner hour. Because
that's a bad idea.
Generally stressed out. So I'll say, if you're ready to teach them a skill, do it right after lunch on a Saturday or right after school snack or whatever. Yeah. And you can still make what's for dinner that night. So but it's just shifting that time frame, a little bit away, because we don't want a stressed out experience in the kitchen, because then the child feels negative about being in the kitchen.
It's that witching hour of the after school through the dinner time. Yes, just get everybody fed. Although certainly kids can play a role in helping to, plate things and clean up and all of that around dinner time for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then once a skill's been learned and maybe practiced once outside the dinner hour, then the magic happens, right? Because then they can actually be helpful. When I'm in a rush, I can just be like, John, cucumbers, Paul, carrots, Leah, do this. And everybody's working. We put some kids at the table so we have more elbow room. And then things actually do move faster and you save time.
And you walk your talk with that, because, I follow you on social media. And if you don't follow Katie, I highly recommend that you do. She posts pictures of things that her kids are doing and making. So Katie's not just talking about like teaching your kids to cut vegetables and make a salad. Like, you can go on her Instagram or her Facebook and see the cool things that her kids are doing with that. And I think that's so important. You're not just teaching other people to do this stuff. You're actually doing it with your own kids, and that then what works and what doesn't work, because you have done that stuff with your own children, which I think is great.
For sure.
Let's talk about vegetables, because, the area, like clinically, one of the recommendations often for kids who I'm seeing, either whether I'm working with them in the clinic or in my online programs, is eating more produce, right? Getting lots of the amazing phytonutrients and just dense nutrients from fruits, and particularly vegetables. And vegetables are the one sticking area really for people, where even we have a lot of parents who go, oh, I don't eat vegetables. And it's like, really? Like, you're 40. When's the last time you had a green bean? Like, I'm pretty sure that we can figure this out, right? But vegetables are so important, and I know that that's a big passion of yours too, for getting kids exposed to vegetables and eating more vegetables. So can you talk about how these experiences in the kitchen, with vegetables, with different kinds of food, are helpful for their physical health, but also for their brain development?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, you taught me this, Dr. Beurkens, is that we all have kind of this tolerance for individual foods. And for some people, you might only need to taste it once or twice. For others, you might have to taste it 57 times. Yep. But I love telling people the great news that any exposure counts.
That's right.
So shopping at the farmer's market, planning, preparing the meals, serving the meals, it all counts as like kind of building that tolerance and getting our smell senses and our taste buds used to those foods. And plus there's that sense of ownership where kids find that when they're working with something, and at least a quarter of our members have said, my child is actually eating more foods now than they used to because they're involved, right? So that's a quarter, but like, obviously there were probably a bunch of kids there who are already good eaters too. And I was just reading one story from a mom who said, oh my goodness, like I have a child who is picky, like count on the fingers the foods he will eat picky. And he helped me cut some peppers for a meal because he was practicing his knife skills, and he actually asked to try one. She was like fall over shocked.
Yeah.
So just getting that experience with vegetables is super, super important for building our tolerance, getting them past, the tongue. And then definitely for mental health and resiliency, when we talk about nourishing our bodies, we've got to get more vegetables in, and things, of course, things like fish and fish oil are often recommended. It's like, that's not a real kid-friendly, mild food that most people think of right away. Oh, let's give our kids stinky fish.
Right.
And the same with vegetables. They can be more bitter, but we know that those bitter foods are packed with exactly what we need for our brain health and development and calming anxiety. And we always tell our families too, I love this reminder, is that vegetables are best assimilated with a healthy fat. And kids love dips, and kids love butter, and all these things that you can use. They make vegetables taste better, and they're actually healthier too, as long as it's a whole fat found in nature.
Yeah. And the piece about exposure is so important. Often parents will just say, oh, well, my kid won't eat that. Or kids will go, oh, I don't eat that, or I don't eat green things, or I don't eat vegetables, or I don't eat fish, or, whatever it might be. And that point about how exposure in any way helps expand the palate is so critical. And that's one of the areas where I think that cooking is so important. So, if you're a parent out there listening to this and you're like, oh, I'd love to get my kid eating more stuff, but he just won't, or she just won't. What Katie's talking about with this involving kids in the kitchen, in the cooking process, is really key for that, because they don't have to just be willing to put it in their mouth to experience it. By washing produce, peeling it, cutting it, sauteing it, cooking it, all of these skills that you're working on in the kitchen, that's exposing them to the sights, the smells, the textures, everything with these foods. And it moves kids more towards being interested in and willing to actually taste it and try it. And, I don't know if you have found this true with your kids, your personal kids and your kids in the program, but, for my personal children, they have an investment in things that they've helped make. And so they're more willing, they're more excited or interested in trying it because they've worked hard to help make it. And I think that's a big factor too.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's definitely that ownership and that so much pride. And so they're involved in part of it. They kind of want to see it through. We have a need to close those loops, complete things. Yeah, for
Absolutely. Sure. Well, and it's funny too, because sometimes, I'll see kids, we'll even be cooking here at the clinic or something, and they'll just sneak a little taste while we're cooking, which I'm like, yeah, good. That exposure of it where it's like, I don't know if I want to admit that this is something I would eat, but this looks kind of interesting. Just look over and they'll be taking a little nibble. And it's those opportunities by having them in the kitchen, for them to be able to try that is so great. I'd love to get into some practical recommendations. So, we've got parents now listening thinking, okay, great, I get it. I want to commit to getting my child in the kitchen more. We've never done this. Where do I start? What are some practical skills that parents can tackle with kids to kind of get this magic happening in the kitchen?
Absolutely. So I like to divide kids into kind of skill level, developmental level. So we'll talk about preschoolers, early elementary, and big kids. So for our preschoolers, just like in preschool where you focus on small motor skills, they're working holding a pencil, cutting, we focus on the same skills in the kitchen. So we're pouring and we're aiming for the center and using care. We're using that butter knife and a banana or cooked carrots, melon that you've cut the rind off, anything that's soft enough. But remember to kind of teach the child to treat that dull knife like it's a sharp knife,
Mm.
because we want them to have really good habits and really good techniques. And then you'll feel super comfortable giving them a paring knife when they're 6, and the other parents are going to go, really? Sharp knife? And you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
we've been doing this for 3 years and keeping their fingers perfectly safe with a butter knife, right? And then we work on measuring too. How do we measure flat? We call it no holes, no hills.
Yeah.
And just so all these really cool, like small motor skills and feeling really positive in the kitchen. So you'll want to work hard on your own stress level with children of that age to make sure that you're really preserving that positive feeling in the kitchen so that they want to continue coming back. Generally, 2-year-olds want to be involved, and we have to be really careful not to break that line of motivation, because if we don't, we probably will have 8 and 9-year-olds who can help and will actually want to help, which is cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so now our early elementary kids, once they can read, that opens up a whole new world at school, opens up a whole new world in the kitchen. So once they can read their own recipes, we want to show them how to follow a recipe well, right? How to read the whole thing before you get started. Make sure you ask mom and dad about things, terms you don't understand, and organize your supplies. So we teach them to move ingredients from left to right so that you don't forget what you put in. And again, these are the same skills that kids need in life, in school, when they do their planners, when they read their worksheets. It's all the same skills. It's just applying it in a different situation.
Right.
I also think that early elementary kids are generally mature enough, especially if you've been working with them, to work at the stove and to use a small paring knife. And then my tip for paring knives is really consider the food you're asking the child to cut. So an onion or an apple or a melon, like these are just too big and gangly. And even carrots are too solid for a paring knife. So we want to think about, radishes, mushrooms, strawberries, pineapple, smaller, softer things. Cucumbers and zucchini are awesome because they're really long. Fingers can stay far away, and they're just the right density for a paring knife to easily get through when the child's like, I'm doing real work. This is awesome. And then we kind of take those skills, and no matter what your child is, maybe you have a 12-year-old, if they've never been at the stove and never used a small sharp knife, you're going to want to start there. And once you see some mastery in those skills, once they're showing maturity, then you can just move up into just about everything. We give our kids chef's knives starting about 7 or 8 or 9, depending on interest and maturity. They have to be motivated to do it. But if a kid is motivated by a big knife, they will be careful when you require them to be careful in order to kind of pass into that realm.
Right.
And then we help our kids think about multitasking. How do you make a main dish and a side dish at the same time? This is still a challenge for me. I'm always the one who's like, oh, part of dinner's ready, part of dinner's not. So, parents can learn too, along with your kids, refining your skills. And then the oven, of course, you have to be big enough and strong enough to deal with oven stuff. So I don't usually recommend that parents get kids to the oven until they're 8, 9, or 10. And again, there's a lot of fear there. So the tip for stoves and ovens is practice with it off. Talk about what will be hot and let them open it and put just an empty cookie sheet in and out of the oven as many times as it takes when everything is cold.
Yeah.
And kids will totally get rid of their fear and build up their confidence when they realize, like, I can do this. This is not as scary as I thought, And then, of course, then the oven is a little scary that first time when they open the oven, the heat kind of hits them. So, but again, if you just talk it through and think about those things, they just need to back up first, and kind of stand to the side or whatever. If you're thinking about it intentionally and thinking it through, which is this is why I created the course, because that's a lot of thinking for parents. So I thought I'll think it through one time, give these easy videos, but it's totally something you can do bit by bit too in your own home.
That's a great tip about the practicing, with the stove and with the oven in particular with it off, because I know that one of the things that, many kids with either developmental or mental health challenges run into is quite a bit of anxiety around that kind of stuff. In fact, I was just talking about that with a family last week with their 13-year-old who we've been working on skills with independence in the kitchen, those kinds of things. But he's been pretty fearful about the heat and about burning himself and those kinds of things. And so we've been working on getting over the anxiety of that and taking it in steps. But I love that idea of really thinking it through and practicing with the skills of that, with it off, so that they gain confidence. And one of the things as you're talking through the different ages, I think it's important to note, if you are the parent of a child who maybe their developmental level is not where their age is, you focus on where their developmental level is. So I don't, if you have a 20-year-old who developmentally is at a 3-year-old level, they can be doing those 3-year-old level things. You don't have to say, well, they can't read and so they can't do anything in the kitchen. No, start where they are and start with where that developmental level is, and then let them build the skills from there, regardless of what their chronological age is.
Perfect. Yeah. And so much can be done without reading in the kitchen
Yes.
too, as far as people with delays or challenges in academia. I mean, first of all, it's great to just be able to throw some vegetables in a pan, add some fat, smell some spices and herbs, and think, this smells good.
Yeah.
Put some in, like the risk is relatively low, especially if you try small batches. Maybe you'll lose $1.
Right.
Throw some spaghetti sauce on, it'll probably taste good.
Right.
Get your $1 back.
That'll hide anything. It's perfect. Well, but speaking of that makes me think about one of the things when you were talking about the resilience piece, I think that cooking is great for is teaching that it's okay to make mistakes. And that, the kitchen is a place where, just like anywhere else in life, things can go in unexpected ways, or something can get screwed up or whatever. And it gives a forum for just being resilient around that, right? And figuring out, I screwed something up. How do I repair that? And so many kids now with learning and behavioral disorders, and just kids in general, are struggling with the idea of being okay with screwing things up, being okay with making a mistake. And I think the kitchen is a great platform for learning that. Do you see that too?
Oh, absolutely. I've kind of taken an interest in the mental health side of things for kids because I interviewed some school counselors, talked to a bunch of teachers, and by and large, they say the biggest issue they're seeing that's really increasing the most over the last decade is anxiety.
Yeah.
That kids are so worried and so anxious, and yes, unable to cope, unable to be independent.
Yeah.
My son's second grade teacher said so many kids will come up and just be like, I can't open this. Can't tie my shoes. And they're not even thinking about ways to solve their own problem other than relying on the adult. Yeah. So definitely, working in the kitchen, not only because you're building those strong family connections, that helps resiliency too, because there's that trustworthiness, your parents trusting you with some real tasks. That feels amazing. You're trusting your parent because you're working together. Yeah. And studies show if kids have just one strong bond with any adult, right? Like that gives them a better chance to have solid, balanced mental health as they grow older. So building those connections is amazing. Learning to fail. Absolutely. Yeah. You can't just walk away.
Right.
You might not be able to completely fix the problem, but at least you got to clean up and hopefully learn for next time, because again, guess what? We got to eat again in like 5 hours. You'll get another chance to try it. So I do find that that resiliency is so important for kids, and in so many ways it can be built in the kitchen, especially as we're, increasing that family connection and building the confidence and creativity. Just that idea of being able to create something from nothing. Even my own kids, just a few weeks ago, they make dinner every Sunday, and I go off to church and volunteer, which is good because I can't micromanage. So
gets you out of the way.
It does. So I'm not even involved. So this day, their plan was pretty loose. They were making breakfast burritos. We didn't even have any eggs in the house. So I was like, I'm driving to church thinking they can learn from failure today. This is going to be really interesting to see what happens. But that wasn't what happened, because I came home and my daughter's face was glowing. She was like, Mom, Paul and I are so proud of ourselves because we just put stuff in the pan and we didn't even really use a recipe and it totally was good and everybody loves it and there's hardly any left for you, Mom.
I love it.
I didn't really get to eat dinner, but I was definitely full of pride in my kids that they were so proud. Like they actually verbalized, we're proud of ourselves. Like, this is how it should work.
That problem solving though, and so many of our kids with these learning and behavior challenges need to work on not only the resilience piece, but also that executive function piece, that those frontal lobe functions of prioritizing and planning and organizing and problem solving. And everything you're talking about and all these examples that you're giving in the kitchen are such great practical ways to strengthen those parts of kids' brains. So just so fabulous. I want to touch on one more thing. We've just got a couple more minutes, but on your Instagram, I see pictures all the time about your kids packing their lunches. And I know we're in the school year right now. Lunches are the bane of every parent's existence, right? Getting those lunches packed in the morning. can you just throw out 1 or 2 quick tips for people, like if they want to get their kids involved with like just making their lives easier in the morning with packing those lunches, 1 or 2 quick things for parents to start with?
Yeah, and so these tips are going to be for parents or kids, right? Regardless of who's packing. We pack right after dinner because everything's out. Our raw veggies are out. The kitchen's a mess. A lot of times I'll try to make a couple meals a week that are really good cold, right? Like grilled chicken, or if you think about like we eat pasta salad, that's cold pasta. So why not be able to take the pasta or the rice meal that you had at dinner and eat it cold? So that depends on your kids' preferences. But we find that it's just a lot quicker as cleanup from dinners going on to put things directly into lunch boxes. Plus, then you don't have this whole feeling of like the kitchen's all cleaned up and like, oh, I have to pack lunches. It's one more thing. Or in the morning when you're rushed packing. Right. So we encourage our kids who, again, my older 2, 10 and 13, they pack their own completely. Right. My 7-year-old, he's right on the edge where we're thinking this year he's going to take more responsibility. He's in charge of unpacking his own. So we kind of like build that. In kindergarten, they just have to deliver the lunch to the counter. First and second grade, they help unpack it, put things in the dishwasher, stuff like that. But anyway, regardless of who's packing, do it right after a meal. And then I like to tell people to have at least one no-brainer. Have something that your kids will eat every single day that you don't have to think about it. So that way you're not starting with a blank slate. Yeah. So for us, it's yogurt. I make homemade yogurt. So we always have jars in the fridge with frozen fruit. And so at least we know like, okay, there's something with fat and protein that they like that they will eat. Yep. Now I can continue instead of looking like, I don't know where to start,
Great. Awesome tips. So practical things that every parent can start to implement. So that's fantastic. This has been great. You've shared so many big picture things as well as specific practical strategies. I want to make sure that people can find you online because you've got so many awesome resources. So let people know where they can find you. I know that you've got something special that our listeners can get. So let's talk about that.
Definitely. Well, we talked about the importance of resiliency. And so I just have a short downloadable ebook that walks you through 3 simple ways at all ages to build kids' resiliency specifically in the kitchen. So that's at kidscookrealfood.com/Dr. Nicole. It's a little special for you, your listeners.
Awesome.
And then in general, yes, I do share a lot of real life on Instagram at Kids Cook Real Food. Not as many lunches because it's dark in Michigan when we make our lunches, so they're so ugly. But definitely, we try to get out there and be really encouraging with what real life is like with 4 kids trying to learn to cook in the kitchen. And then just kidscookrealfood.com is where you can learn more about what we do, building that connection, confidence, and creativity in kids.
Yeah, and I just want to put in a plug for your cooking course online. I recommend it often at the clinic. It's such, I've looked through the entire thing as a former teacher myself, as well as a parent and a clinician. It's really well put together. Any of you parents out there who are looking for a structured way to just take kids through learning these valuable cooking skills, cannot recommend Katie's program enough. So definitely get online and check out what she's built there. Katie, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. This has been awesome. I appreciate you spending time with us on the show.
Oh, it's an honor. And thank you so much for the compliments. It means a lot. I just really want to get kids in the kitchen, eating vegetables, building independence. So the easier I can make it for parents, the better.
Awesome. All right. That does it for today's show. We will see you next time.